right, welcome. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Cannabis Minority Report. Thank you for joining us here at the National Cannabis Industry Association's podcast. This is a platform for global majority, aka minority voices in the industry, part of NCIA's ongoing commitment to our DEI program and creating greater diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry. Each week, we sit down with a conversation with an inspiring cannabis of color and report on the news, providing our take on headlines and highlighting interesting stories we'd like to share. I am the DEI manager here at the NCIA, and I'm really glad that you're here to join us. We have a great guest today, Keyston Franklin, a good friend for the last few years here in the industry, doing amazing good things. He's actually now the chair of our Banking and Financial Services Committee, and of course, the CEO of Gallantri Industries. We're going to have a great conversation in just a little bit, but as you all know, first we jump into announcements from NCIA as well as our take on the news. So we're going to start with some announcements going on. We are right now tentatively scheduled to be in New York, Detroit, and Chicago for our equity workshop tour. That'll be starting at the end of this month through the first week of May. We will be releasing official dates and locations very soon. When I say very soon, by the time that this podcast hits Spotify, we may already have announced them. But for those of you watching live today, we're still a little bit tentative. On that note, we are looking to finalize our last couple of sponsorships before we can go ahead and announce officially. So if you're a company out there looking to elevate your credibility, your visibility, and you really care about and have a commitment to social equity in the cannabis industry, go ahead and reach out to me. We'd love to have you join us as a sponsor. These workshops are really designed to help bring the networks together, bring the national network as well as those of our local and other national organizations together with our social equity community in these different cities. I'm a strong believer that a big reason that social equity has been so challenging is because of the fracturing and the siloing that we have within the communities, within our networks. And so the more we can bring people together, I think that's where we really start to see the magic happen. So I hope to see you in these cities, New York, Chicago, and Detroit. They are associated with our industry socials in those same towns. So hopefully you'll be able to make those as well. The industry socials, of course, are NCIA's live event series this year. The other thing that I want to mention today, as far as news with within NCIA, is our Global Majority Caucus, which is made up of our global majority leaders of our board, our committee leadership, as well as our equity scholarship members that have become very active in committees. We have about 45 members strong in our Global Majority Caucus, which I think is an amazing accomplishment here at the NCIA. And that meeting that we are having, our Global Majority Caucus, is later this week. Of course, it's a private meeting for us to be able to kind of huddle up together, figure out what's going on. Again, breaking down more silos and continuing to expand and grow the network. So those things are on tap for April. Stay tuned, and we'll tell you what's coming up next. All right. That said, I got some news here today for everybody. And the things, you know what? I forgot to make some announcements and some thank yous. Thank yous are always in order, right? So thank you to our sponsors for the Equity Workshop Tour. Our gold sponsors for New York, Etain and Grow America Builders. Thank you so much for both of you all. Grow America Builders is also a silver sponsor for our Chicago workshop, along with Illinois Equity Staffing. And we also have a silver sponsor that's come on board for Detroit, Cannabis Capital. Thank you all so much for really stepping up and taking the lead and saying, hey, yes, we want to make sure these happen. So thank you so much, Cannabis Capital, Etain, Grow America Builders, Illinois Equity Staffing. I know there's a few more that we'll be announcing in the next few days as well. So thank you again. All right. That said, the first story I want to lead off with here today is the NBA reached their competitive their CBA. I'm a competitive benefit agreement. I can't remember. For some reason, it's completely blanking me. But the CBA, it's basically their contract between the NBA, the league, and the Players Association, collective bargaining agreement. Thank you, Vince. So it's the agreement between the union and the NBA itself. They announced that they signed one for 7 years, and the big news here is that the ban on marijuana, on cannabis, is no longer there in the CBA. Previously, it had been deprioritized, where it wasn't yet a ban, but it had been the testing for cannabis had been suspended. That was a result of the bubble in 2020. A lot of players actually were relying on cannabis to, help manage certain aspects of things, especially the mental health side of things, of going through the pandemic, being in the bubble. And so the league had recognized, hey, you know what, as long as there's no, so-called aberrant behavior, we can go ahead and deprioritize testing of that. But it wasn't officially yet removed from the CBA until this new round. They are ratifying it over the next few weeks, but last week they announced that this was a big part of it. So really exciting to see that, especially because we're seeing other leagues as well, right? MLB, Major League Baseball, has gone ahead and recently signed a CBD company to serve as the league's first ever cannabis sponsor. UFC, United Fighting Championship, the MMA league basically announced in 2021 they would no longer be punishing fighters over marijuana tests. And the NCAA no longer, players no longer automatically lose their eligibility following a positive test. And then the NFL even has gone ahead and stepped up and said we're not going to be suspending players anymore for this. So, the movement of the needle is definitely there. We're seeing professional athletes now not having to hide their use. It's been a long time thing where a lot of players have either had to make a choice of hiding it and then risking suspension and even worse, potentially losing contracts, losing endorsements, things of that nature, or simply go ahead and go the opiate route instead of being able to lean on cannabinoids for their pain management. For the folks out there that don't necessarily realize this, being a professional athlete, of course, is extremely challenging on the body and on the mind. And so having access to cannabinoid medicine as opposed to having to lean on opiates is really a major deal in this country and something that I think is going to help to move the needle as far as acceptance and destigmatization. We see so much that, people lean on athletes and celebrities in general for the lead, taking the lead on a lot of things. There's a reason that LeBron James has how many million followers on Instagram or Twitter or wherever else. And so, having now these leagues step up and say, we're not going to penalize people anymore. Kevin Durant has made a deal with Weed Maps to help promote and destigmatize cannabis. I think this is going to really help shift in the culture, especially in minority cultures, the African American community, the Latino American community, these different communities where the stigmatization has been very deep. I think we're going to see some breaking of that stigmatization now over these next couple of years as athletes are able to a little bit more freely move in that space. We've seen some retired professional athletes enter the space, but of course they're not as in the spotlight because they're retired and no longer drawing the same spotlight a lot of the time. So anyway, so that's definitely something that I thought was very newsworthy, and I wanted to weigh in on and celebrate really because I think it's a great moving of the needle. Keyston, any thoughts on that one?
Well, you said it. It's really good that they're, I guess, recognizing that cannabis is a benefit. It's a plant. It's something that can be helpful, particularly with athletes, injuries, recovery, even mental and emotional health. And having professional leagues as well as individuals come out and speak about it, brings a little bit more and sheds a little more light to the plant and the benefit of it and, the use. And maybe we get some more research and some more support in the federal level because of that. So these are all great things, I guess, in my eyes.
Awesome. Yeah, the research side of things, as we know, sports medicine has become highly researched. And then that recovery time thing, that's a huge word that we hear a lot, especially in the NBA with load management and things like that. So absolutely, appreciate your insights on that. And so we're going to shift gears here a little bit. I'm going to come back to another news story in just a minute, but I wanted to go ahead and highlight some of the businesses we do every week here, highlight global majority owned, managed, run businesses, because that is honestly part of the news. We're so used to the news being the things that show up on CNN, CNBC, whatever it is, but news really is anything that's new, anything going on. And so I think that it's really important that we recognize that we are making news on a regular basis. That is what's going on in the world. That is what's going on in the industry. And so we constantly make a point to highlight news of companies that in our orbit, in our sphere. So the first one here to lead off with is shout out to the law offices of Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa, of course, is one of our board members at the NCIA, a really strong leader and advocate in the cannabis industry for decades. It's funny when I met Omar a couple of years ago, a few years back, as a board member. The first thing I asked him, I said, "Are you the same Omar Figueroa that helped out some of my friends 20 some years ago in cannabis in the industry before we called it an industry?" And he was like, "Yep, that was me." And it connected so many dots for me, being able to see that somebody who has really been just a champion for a long time. This was before it was glamorous to be in cannabis. This was before the sexiness of the industry. This is somebody that from the jump street has been about how do we advocate for a plant? How do we make sure that people aren't getting locked up and going to jail for this plant? So Omar, thank you so much on that note. But the news that I want to bring up is that his law firm was named Best Cannabis Law Firm and also Best IP Law Firm by the North Bay Bohemian, which covers Napa and Sonoma counties, counties that are very important in the California economy, counties that are very important in the cannabis industry as well. So, Omar, congratulations. That's excellent news to see you being recognized by your peers. And I know you've been recognized in many different capacities over the years, but this is one that, came up recently. So thank you for all the work you do. Another award that I found out about recently went to Osbert Orduña, the CEO of the Cannabis Place, and a recent member of our state regs committee here at the NCIA. He's also been doing a lot of great work with our New York Social Equity Roundtable. Osbert is also I think he's like a co-director of the tri-state chapter of the National Hispanic Cannabis Council, and he's also the founder of a organization that has just started out to support service-disabled veterans in cannabis. And so Osbert does a lot of great work, and he is the first recipient of the New York Canna Chamber of Commerce's Equity for Our Community Award because of all the advocacy work he is doing in New York on behalf of BIPOC service-disabled veterans and disproportionately impacted communities in New York State. So Osbert, a recent licensee in New York, and also New Jersey, congratulations on the award and being recognized for the work you're doing. And shout out to also taking that lead and being somebody getting one of those licenses to be able to do some good work. I love seeing licenses go to people that actually really give a damn about the plant and the community. So really great to see that happening. And that isn't something that we've seen in necessarily a lot of other states. So shout out to New York also for, I know there's a lot of flaws in how people see things have rolled out, but we also see that these are folks that are getting licenses, whereas other states that didn't happen. So we have to shout out where things are happening that are positive. Okay, and then the last person that I wanted to highlight here is Quico Castillo. So Quico, the president of MCBA, the news here is he's also, first of all, this isn't news. He has been the founder of Thunderstorm Strategies for a while. That's a marketing firm that does a lot of great work with the nonprofit sector and the political sphere. But he also just launched the Cannabis CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, basically CMO, Cannabis CMO newsletter. It's basically going to be filled with marketing tips, news, best practices specifically for cannabis marketing professionals. And Kaliko, for those of you who don't know him, is again another one of these people that has a huge heart, really, always thinking about impact, always thinking about how do we make strides in this industry and in this world. So it's really great to see Kaliko going ahead and launching that. I think it's going to be a great resource. I know that he interviewed Brad Bogus recently. And a lot of great insights and wisdoms there. So if you're in cannabis and you are trying to figure out how to get your business out there more, definitely check out the Cannabis CMO newsletter. Quico Castillo, congratulations on the launch of that. All right, so I'm going to shifting gears here now to the last news story, which is kind of along the lines of what I just mentioned with Quico being the president of MCBA, but NCIA and MCBA, along with National Cannabis Roundtable, the U.S. Cannabis Council, and the National Hispanic Cannabis Council have released a joint letter to the U.S. Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs to expeditiously take action on the bipartisan Safe Banking Act upon its reintroduction, highlighting the urgent need for congressional action to alleviate the barriers to accessing capital and banking services to public safety and support economic growth. So what really struck me here is that these are organizations that we should be working together more. We should be working together in lockstep a lot more because we do represent the businesses in the industry in a lot of different sectors and spheres, right? MCBA, minority cannabis businesses. NCIA, of course, we cover Main Street cannabis, which includes a lot of minority-owned businesses. And then USCC is definitely made up of a lot more so-called the bigger players at the table. But the reality is we all need to be working together because this is a small industry relative to where it's going to be going, and we need to be thinking about things together. So it's great to see all of us working together, and HCC, of course, and NCR too. And that's a great segue to really talk here with Keyston here, because Keyston is, as I mentioned earlier, the chair of our Banking and Financial Services Committee. So before I pass the mic here to Keyston, I just want to say real quick here, Keyston has been somebody that I've looked at with a lot of respect over the last few years. I got to meet you, Keyston, in Chicago at that Chicago Resources Fair that the city of Chicago put on. I think it was 2019 or something like that. When cannabis was coming online for adult use in Illinois. We had a great conversation there out on the floor there, and just really ever since then, every time we've checked in, you've always got amazing things going on, and have always kept really that the eye on the prize of being realistic and at the same time staying positive, staying optimistic about what we're doing here. Like if we're doing this for real, if we're really building something, we have to stay positive and we have to believe in ourselves and believe in what we're building here. And that's something I've always really respected and appreciated about you and every circle that you've been in, every time we come in a room and you're there. So thank you for joining us here today. Thanks for all the work you're doing with Gallantri Industries and everything else. I'd love to hear your take on this banking thing and kind of what the deal is with safe banking and how your committees are looking at that. And yeah, tell us how you're doing, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show. Very excited to be here. Listened to it a couple of times, so definitely an honor. So yeah, I remember 2019 UIC Pavilion or UIC Forum. First entry into cannabis. Me and some of the other business partners were already into hemp, but the rec was rolling out here, and some of the same issues, then are still some of the same issues now, with the new spin on it. Now, with regards to the banking, so I smile and I'll pause because, one, I'm not a politician, so I'm just going to say it how I see it. As always, well, I've always been. Politicians say, well, we're delaying because some of the provisions it's not protecting some of the bad actors. I get it, but you aren't protecting some of the good actors, in that space. And so that's one of the things that Banking Financial Services Committee here at NCIA we've worked towards, and saying, well, okay, until safe banking passes, there are financial services and companies out there that can be utilized to help grow your business, sustain your business, and then make your dreams a reality, or even your business a success as you see fit. And one of the things you mentioned earlier about being positive, is understanding the business that you're in. And cannabis, it's not a very quick get rich type scheme type business. So that's one of the things. As long as you temper that expectation, you understand it's a marathon. There's going to be iterations, particularly in the sector of banking and finance, because there's very restrictive policies in place. Then you're going to be okay. Being part of a network like NCIA and some of the other cannabis associations really helps out, because just in NCIA alone, we have over 60 plus banking and financial service, entities or entities that are providing those services for cannabis operators and new cannabis entrepreneurs. And so just being part of that network in itself can resolve some of the banking and financial service issues that, initially we ran into in 2019 with getting into banks that service your type of account for your business, as well as getting accountants and tax representatives who can support some of the specific needs that you have, involving 280E and some of the other restrictions that you might have with the operating cannabis business.
Yeah, again, so you're really bringing up that the impact of the who you know, not what you know concept.
Yep.
A lot of folks, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the space, and you can, until there's some provisions for safe banking, it is who you know. So get to know everyone that you need to know to make your business a success. You can't iterate that enough. Getting to events, if you have a banking issue, with accounting, go to workshops and events where accountants are putting on seminars about 280E. If you have funding, get to every single, pitch presentation, get around VCs, and rub some elbows, I guess, remotely. Now it's digital meet, but yes, get in those spaces and then, speak about your issue. That's the other thing. A lot of times people don't speak about financial issues or challenges that they're having. And that's, you can't solve something that you don't know, what the problem is. And it's not an embarrassment because it's just the nature of this industry as it's in its infancy 15, 20 plus years, but still young as an industry growing here in the United States.
No, I think that's a great point, right? I mean, we're actually taught from a young age in this country a lot of times to not talk about money, not ask
Yeah.
people how much they make, not ask how much rent costs, all that
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it translates to when we're business owners not want to talk about money at all. I think that's a great point. Everybody needs to take heed of that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's the goals for the committee this term? Like, what are your goals with the safe banking? Oh, not with the safe banking. Well, of course, we know what the goal of safe banking is to get that thing passed. But
Right.
what's the goal with the Banking and Financial Services Committee for NCIA this year?
Education, that's the overarching goal. Getting as much education on financial service tools and resources to social equity, minority, or just any cannabis operating, even hemp operators. You know, some of the new financial services or institutions are coming out with new products, getting those products out, getting a platform for NCIA members and non-members alike to discuss some of their, the issues that they might be seeing geographically or, in their specific business. And, our main goal is to get as much information out on how to successfully manage your business from a financial perspective as possible, whether it be just, podcasts, webinars, blogs. We have a new hot seat that we're very excited about launching this month, being very specific about entrepreneurs' financial challenges. But that's our overarching goal. There's some other things that will roll out as the year comes through, but most of it's education.
Awesome. No, I love that. And, I think that something else you said there that really sticks out for me is, you mentioned, of course, for social equity businesses and really for businesses in general, because at the end of the day, there's really not a lot of a difference when it comes to business, whether you're social equity or whether you're regular business.
It's the same.
Yes, there may be some more grants available here and there. There may be some other hurdles, and also, by definition, there's a little more of a lack of access to resources. But running the business is the same, and so understanding your finances and being educated on that is going to be the same. So, thanks for bringing that
Yeah.
out.
And even with that, I was saying, what's everyone talks about social equity, but I'm going to be real. Social equity businesses. I almost say it makes it harder, because you have this stigma now, particularly in banking and financial services, because most of the provision of social equity means economic impoverishment or economic hardship or some type of, poverty level. And then this scares most financial institutions because they're like, well, if you're, doesn't matter what the cause, they're saying, well, if you don't have a lot of funds, then how are you going to run a business? If you can't manage funds, how are you going to run a business? You know, these are some of the things that scares a lot of financial institutions. But if you stay the course of this is just a traditional business, use the resources, even your score, your SBA, WBDC, and getting a lot of financial resources there. You may not be eligible for some of the grants, but the process of having good financial books, good financial hygiene is going to be the same when it comes to cannabis business. There are going to be a little small deviance here and there, but yeah.
So you talk about financial hygiene, and that term right there, financial hygiene, right? It's not a term that I'm actually too familiar with, but I can kind of guess what that means. Tell us
Yeah,
more about that term, what it is, why it's important.
financial. I can't even take. So financial hygiene's been out around for a while, but business partner Terry Buffalo, he uses it and he says it with such passion. So I just have, it just rubbed off on me over the years. But financial hygiene is just that, when you think about any type of hygiene or cleanliness, you're looking at your books or when in the cannabis and financial hygiene. How is your business structured? When you're looking at your budget, are you monitoring your spending? Are you reporting what you're spending? Are do you have any type of future plan, realistic goals and things like that? Are you monitoring your credit? Are you using credit? Is this, all these things that you would have in a traditional business? How are you really articulating this? And then does it smell good at the end of the day? Because that's what everyone, safe banking politicians are worried about. Is like, well, you got two sets of books. This doesn't look right, or situation is like, well, it's just all over the place. And so when you go to give your reports to the state, because at the end of the day, compliance are going to want to do an audit, 2-3 times a month, sometimes more, depending on what you're doing, all cash or what state you're in. You want to make it as easy as possible for your business to be a success. And then when you're looking at getting funding, bringing in new partners, your books are clean, you have a clear financial plan, then it just makes it much easier for individuals to make a decision, moves them from the quick no to a more concise maybe, and towards that definitely yes. So no one wants to go out on a date with someone who smells, right? So
Right.
same thing. So if your books or financials, they look funny and smell funny, then think it the same way. So clean it up.
Awesome. I love that. One of the things that I do recommend to folks in my coaching program a lot is spending a half hour a day with your financials. Even if you don't think you have to, just spending a half an hour doing it because
Yeah,
to your point, right? You might not have eaten something funky, but you're still going to brush your teeth that day regardless, right?
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Well, and then also with financials, the more you spend in there, when you're looking at what your spend is, counting for every penny, every cent that comes in, the more you're going to look at your business. You're going to figure out where some of those leaks are. You're going to figure out where your lack of understanding is an entrepreneur, is, and then you can reach out to the right professional to help with that. Finance is the center of every business. Uh, doesn't matter what industry you're in. You can see what marketing is working, what's not working. You can see where you're exposed at as far as insurances, and even on accounting and products and what's being sold. But yeah, like you say, spending a little bit of time just going over that, it also helps re-engage you with your vision of your business. If you have your business and you say, oh, I want to be in this region, or I want to scale, it's going to take money to do that. If you want to have X amount of income over a period of years, or you want to exit, it's going to take money and revenue to do that. And if you aren't monitoring that, you aren't monitoring your success or tracking your business, adequately. So.
I mean, right there, sage advice right there. I think I mean, Vince just saying this right now is that's a segment right there. I think that everybody should hear. So let's pull that piece out. Because I think that, we often take for granted that folks are just automatically doing that. And reality we find out is they're not. A lot of times, to your point, people have all these great visions, and cannabis brings a lot of great, inspiring and inspired people into the industry. But the brass tacks still matter. And we still have to
Yeah.
sit down with our financials, with our books, make sure all that stuff is clean. To your point, somebody that another business partner would want to date you, basically. A bank might want to fund you, right? So and so forth. So, okay, so shifting gears a little bit, tell us about Gallantri Industries itself. I know that you guys are very focused on veterans in the space. You yourself being a veteran of the armed services here, and so. Can you tell us more about Gallantri Industries and kind of what the mission is, and just more about the company in general?
Right, right. So Gallantri Industries, Inc., we're a C Corp, veteran and minority owned hemp and cannabis company, vertically integrated, and our mission was to, empower veterans and communities using the plants of hemp and cannabis. And, we started off as getting veterans and minorities into assisting them getting into the cannabis industry here in Illinois, through applications through the three recreational applications. And then after that, we found a knack for it and had some veterans across in the country in some other states and say, hey, we want to be a part of the cannabis industry, but we have no idea how to do that as well. And so we started helping outside, and then being partnered up in other licenses. Some of the minority and veterans in the group, were coming from the legacy space. So it grown, and then we're very excited to be able to do this legally, and then after, Rudy, one of my other business partners, we started hemp together in 2013, 2014, and one of the other business partners in one of our Illinois licenses, we ran a nonprofit, a veterans nonprofit. And we did that for 10 plus years. And we originally got exposed to, the cannabis industry as we're helping, veterans who are working in cannabis industry, making great money, and they could not, get housing or get mortgages for housing is where the issue was. Not the fact that they didn't have income, but the income wasn't verifiable because it was from an illicit business. And so we're looking at some of those solutions and how to navigate that. And that's what our initial exposure was outside of, using CBD and cannabis just for our own aches and pains, going in that way. But when we looked at, what this plant can do for a community, as we're on the nonprofit side, we say, well, we should be a little bit more deliberate. And that's when we chose a for-profit entity and, started down the path of creating Gallantri Industries, which, now we have licenses in 5 other states. We're working on 2 large licenses, 2 other states, and then also licenses in Ecuador finally, working specifically with hemp and as well as some cannabis research and development. So, our mission is to empower, through this plant, the hemp and cannabis plant. We started off with veterans and minorities, but, to empower communities is one of our biggest passion. And we choose veterans because veterans are everywhere here in the States. And if you look at the history and community development, a lot of the veterans are leading some of these community-driven groups because they're community and I guess focus. They've already volunteered to serve their country, and then when they come back, they want to serve their country even more or serve their community because we believe we can be so much more than what we are. Not that we aren't great right now. I think we're a great country, a lot of great communities, wonderful opportunities, but there's still more that we can do, to our own community members that we're doing some things overseas, that can be improved here. So.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate your commitment to really bettering the community. There's always room for improvement, no matter what something looks like. We can always keep improving it. So now, you guys, when you say hemp, you mean industrial hemp, though, also, right? You do mean CBD, but you also mean industrial hemp, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So CBD, hemp-derived products for ingestion, aches, pains, rebalancing the cannabis system in your whole body. With tons and tons of receptors, but also industrial hemp. So industrial hemp is something that's we're very excited about, and we've been building this out for about 2 years plus. There are tons of uses for it, whether you're looking at building for hempcrete, insulation, woods, tables, lawn chairs, anything that you can make with plastic or polymer, you can do with hemp, and is environmentally friendly. Everyone's talking about going green, getting up their ESG scores and things like that. But with hemp, it is, it can be a reality here. So yes, definitely industrial hemp. It's the industry's filling some of the gaps that they had in the processing segment. That we didn't have enough processors or those with, I guess, enough equipment here to handle some of the large loads that would be needed for a larger industrial or infrastructure use of industrial hemp. But that's it's changing. A lot of processors coming up, a lot of equipment. Some engineers are building equipment here in the States, so the lead time, you have to wait for that as well. Previously, some of the equipment like the corticators, things like that, would take like months to get over, and no one really wants to wait months or time, so they just kind of not go into that business. So, but yes, definitely industrial hemp. We're very excited about that. We have about 240 molds of industrial hemp in our facility in Morse, Illinois, and we're 13, well, I think it was like 13 injection mold machines in which we can print pretty much anything that you can do from a traditional plastic. So.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, we don't really talk about much about industrial hemp at the NCIA because it's, we're more focused on the so-called THC side of things, whether it's medical or whether it's adult use. But I think that this is something that's slept on a lot, and people, maybe it's because, like as you mentioned, the supply chain, the processing, the manufacturing wasn't there before to the point it is now. But is this an opportunity you feel that people are sleeping on, that people need to be kind of being more aware of? Yeah, like do you think it's, where do you see the
Yeah.
industry going at this point in time?
Yes. So like it is an opportunity. I don't know if people are sleeping on it, they're waking up to it. But the industry is ready for growth. There's been, USDA grants been put out for industrial hemp uses. I think it was like $150 million. I think last year, 2021, federal government put out, I forget how many $1 million for infrastructure using, environmentally friendly and safe products. Now, hemp was specifically named into that. But even construction facilities, hotels, boutique restaurants, they're looking at, well, how can they be, I guess, environmentally and human friendly, I guess, if you will, whether it be utensils that they're making. Uh, you know, I think one of the construction companies, they like the hempcrete just because it was lighter. They can employ individuals with either disabilities or cannot, carry large loads of bricks and things like that. So yeah, it's an industry that's growing, and with more businesses looking at using hemp as a base raw material, you're going to need simply that raw material. You're going to need cultivators. You're going to need processors. You're going to need individuals who are able to manufacture, more. So I'm very excited because it could really bring back the manufacturing industry here in the U.S., which we saw in the last 2 or 3 plus years, a huge gaping hole we have, in our country, and we couldn't even produce things to save lives. Here we had to wait a lead time for it to be shipped out to another country. So very excited about the industrial hemp, the opportunity here in the States.
Yeah, it sounds like it can make a big shift in so many ways we didn't even think about, right? I mean, the thing you just mentioned about being able to employ folks that couldn't otherwise carry certain types of materials. I mean, that's just
Yeah,
something I wouldn't even think about, you know? So there's probably, as we start bringing these things more online, there's going to be more and more of these kinds of things we uncover. Again, it goes back to what I say a lot is that I think that, cannabis, hemp, whatever you want to call it, has the ability to really, I think, heal the world in a lot of ways,
yeah,
because it touches so many aspects of what we do. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
So
It
a
has
question I wanted to
healed.
ask you because yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I said it has healed the world. My own personal story. I just say is, a buddy of mine, mentor actually, and became a good friend. He introduced me to hemp, and it, healed my body physically. I'm not making any medical claims, not a doctor, anything like that. But veteran, taking prescription drugs, things like that. I remember the very first he gave me a chocolate chew and the CBD tincture, and I was driving down. It was in California. Got back to Chicago. I was driving down LSD Lakeshore Drive, and then I had to call him. Guys, just for the first time in like years, I felt almost like no pain. Like, and it was just it may seem like trivial, but when you knee surgery, shoulder surgeries, all sorts of things, and every day you just wake up and you're like, oh, okay, this part hurts. It doesn't hurt as much as it did yesterday or a certain part in the day. So you get used to that. But to have that feeling, and that's when I became, John Babs. I called Rudy right after the call. I was like, hey, you got to try this, buddy. This is back, 2014, 2015, and it's the plant. It's a fantastic thing, and we want to share it with the world. So very, very happy to be in the industry.
Absolutely. So you mentioned physical pain, and I don't think it's a trivial thing at all. I think that people that live with pain on a regular basis understand that it's not having pain or being close to pain free is not trivial at all. It's an amazing thing, and I think the cannabis has a lot of potential there. I mean, I don't think that we know this from lots of different experiences. Again, not a doctor either,
Right.
but saying from anecdotal experience that it definitely can help with that. And so, kind of a separate topic here, but you mentioned, that you were a competitive gymnast at one point in time, and this is something I didn't know about until recently. So, tell me about this. Like when, how, what? Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, oddly enough, so I grew up. I was a bow leg, pigeon toed kid. I wore braces all the way up until I was about 4 years old. I, couldn't walk. There's like not just braces on the ankle. People see there's of course. There's actually a bar at the bottom of my foot. that kept my feet and turned them out. So it was just, challenging. So once I was out of those, doctors like, okay, he doesn't have to wear them anymore. My parents put me in athletics to keep my body moving. And so it put me in gymnastics. My sister was in gymnastics. And, you know, I just, had a knack for it, or I liked it. Maybe I liked the coaches or whatever, or the fact that my sister was in it. So I wanted to be just like her and be good at it. And so, yeah, continued it, became competitive with it, did it all the way through from since my whole childhood, since 5, and then up to about 2 years in college. So went to Junior Olympics, did well with there, met a lot of wonderful people, both inside of the U.S. and outside the U.S. in gymnastics. And it's a great sport. I can say I had some great coaches as well, both that were my own, and then even from the camps and experience of going to different gyms and learning during the summertime. But it's also helped business, believe it or not. Gymnastics, when you're overcoming challenges, and it's only you. And so the beauty about gymnastics is sometimes it's a team sport. Yeah, you're competitive against your gym, against another gym, but it's you and the apparatus. Likened to, I guess, golf, you're besting yourself and you're besting the equipment. So if there's anything that's an issue, you have to fix it, or you have to figure out what works with you and your body, because sometimes your body type doesn't work with a particular apparatus or whatever. But you're overcoming some of those challenges, but also vision. Everyone talks about now, oh, well, if you want something, envision it, hold it in your mind's eye. I had this coach, Jim Heisey and Kevin, but Jim would always say before we go do a routine, he's like, envision you doing your routine. When we would do these exercises in practice, and we do it right before meets. Every skill, every hand placement, your toe point, things like that. But when you think about, well, in life, if you want something, same thing with business, same thing with your finances in the cannabis business. You're envisioning, what does your business look like? What does your spend look like? What does your products look like? How do people see your business when they see your logo? How do they feel about it? You're envisioning all these things, and then you're making it manifest by going out and getting the partners in place, or getting the tools and resources in place to go ahead and do that. So, I'm very grateful for my time as a gymnast, because it, indirectly helped me, be a better entrepreneur, and then just a citizen, I guess, by having some of these, challenges to overcome in a safe space, as well as opportunity to share wins and losses, and then even support individuals who are competitive on my team, but also, we're on the same team. So I want to best them, so I get on the podium. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're doing well, because we want to get on the podium ahead of some other team. So it's a great sport. I loved it. Lots of aches, lots of pains, lots of long nights, um, lots of traveling. I got to see the world. There's definitely the states in the world. And so, yeah, that was my time. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad that we got to have this conversation today, because I didn't know this at all, and it makes a lot of sense, right? And I love what you're saying about the envisioning and being intentional, right? And being able to really see your success in everything that you do, right? And being able to lay that out there, so that it's not just this idea that somebody has as an entrepreneur, and then there's no visualization of how we're going to get there. I imagine if you went out there in gymnastics and tried to do that, you would end up pretty injured. Is probably
Oh,
what
yeah.
happens. Yeah,
Get some bumps and bruises, but you put some ice on it, take a little rest, and try it again.
yeah, exactly. The resilience, man, and that's one of the things that we need in this industry, and really as an entrepreneur in general, we need to be resilient. So, I can't believe time is totally flown by. We're going to take a quick break right now, and then we're going to come back and play our Candid Quiz game. We're going to see how Keyston, how you do on our quiz today, and we'll be right back. So Vince, take us away.
Well, here at the National Cannabis Industry Association, we have proudly represented small businesses across the cannabis industry since 2010. We represent Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. We have come so far in this fight to legalize cannabis that it seems that it's almost inevitable And we're the ones making sure that as those rules are written, they favor small businesses, mom and pop operators, and Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. In addition to making sure that your voice is heard at the federal level, being a member of NCIA also means building a vibrant community of small business owners within the cannabis space. Because we can always learn so much better by working together, learning from our mistakes and our successes, and building this industry together. So if you're interested in making sure that small businesses and Main Street cannabis has a seat at the table, be sure to join NCIA at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right. Well, hey, look, this has been a great conversation. And like I said, I told everybody here when we announced the show, this was going to be a great one here talking with Keyston, because we can get really deep on some things, just simply talking about gymnastics, really life lessons, talking about financials, life lessons. These are things that every entrepreneur really needs to understand and be able to apply to their business in order to be successful, especially for the long term, especially if you're trying to build generational wealth, and especially if you don't have a ton of resources at your back, right? But recognize you do have a lot more resources than you think a lot of the time by plugging into these networks, plugging into the NCIA, plugging into, hit up the Bank and Financial Services Committee at the NCIA if you're struggling with that. Openly speak about your finances, openly speak about the struggles you're having so that other folks that are out there who have experience can help you with those problems. You're not alone. This is not a new thing for entrepreneurs to struggle with the financial side. What's really a new thing, I think, in our modern world is to never talk about money. That's, I think, the thing that's kind of, a more of a modern construct. So with that said, we're going to jump into our game here. And all right, the way it works, it's very basic, straightforward. It's a couple of multiple choice questions, and no real studying needed. But we basically see if you get 0, 1, or 2. I think we've had one person, maybe 2 people get 2 out of 2. We probably should go back and figure that out. There's a bunch of folks who've gotten 0 out of 2. So, if you get 1 out of 2, you're golden, I think, right? Okay. So but shoot for 2. Envision 2. Let's envision 2. Let's envision both of them. All right. So first question. Cannabis support can feel niche. In whatever social or political circles you run in, though, you're likely to hear some form of support or some form of for cannabis legalization. Whether it's for adult use, medical only, hemp, whatever it may be, the overwhelming majority of our country is ready to see the end of criminalizing cannabis. In 2021, so as of 2021, what was the remaining percentage of the country still supporting the full prohibition of cannabis? Was it 22%, 13%, 8%, or 2%? How many people in the U.S. as of 2021 were still in favor of full prohibition? 22, 13, 8, or 2%?
Oh, that's tricky because I know the opposite, and none of those stats match up mathematically. Well, they were saying 67% were in favor of trying cannabis product. So I'm gonna go maybe somewhere close to 22%.
A lot smaller than that. We're actually going to go, according to an April 2021 Pew Research Center survey, only 8% of Americans say that cannabis should not be legal in any form. An overwhelming majority, 91%, say it should be legal for some aspect. 60% say it should be used. It should be for this survey, 60% said medical and recreational, and then 31% said medical only. So that's 69% basically thought that that the other case around. So, but yeah, 8%. So I mean, when we really think about the fact that it's still federally illegal, we still think about the fact we can't even get safe banking through yet. It's kind of crazy when only 8% of adults actually feel this way. But it shows, federal government tends to move pretty damn slowly. So federal government, start waking up and start getting this moving forward.
Are they voting 8%, or what is this? Is everyone voting or what?
This is for a survey, so it doesn't mean that they went out to the polls for this, right? So, this was a Pew Research did this one. All right, so second question: start low, go slow. Often the advice for people that are learning how to dose with cannabis, especially with edibles, right? So without proper dose labeling and production, edibles can sometimes seem, too much for someone new to cannabis. And a lot of folks actually will even shy away from using it. Now, if everybody knew this information, they might be a little bit more likely to try it, or at least to be able to navigate a little easier. So which of these fixes for too much THC can help someone level out their experience if they feel they have overconsumed? Putting mayonnaise on your face, smelling some black pepper, consuming some CBD, or licking a fresh lemon? So these are all nice colloquial fixes: putting your face in mayonnaise, smelling some black pepper, consuming some CBD, or licking a fresh cut lemon.
Wait, what was the last one?
Licking a fresh cut lemon.
Wow. Well, consuming CBD works, and then the pepper, the peppercorn they say, but that's not sniffing black pepper. But I'll go with CBD since that's one of the ones.
Yep, that's it. You nailed it. Well, every answer has been suggested, of course, by the pros out there. Apparently, Vince hit me with this one here. He says that Snoop Dogg actually suggested the mayonnaise on your face. So that was a Snoop Dogg recommendation there. CBD actually works, and it works because of the anti-anxiety mechanisms, and by also basically using different receptors, I guess. It says here, since CBD doesn't bind to the receptors like THC, it can balance and take the edge off of the intensity of the high. I'm not 100% sure on the science and stuff, but I'm going along with Vince's research here, and I'm saying that I do know that CBD can help. And so yeah, you got it. So that's 1 out of 2. So you don't fail. 1 out of 2 works for us.
Even if I did fail, I'd get back up and try again. I was like, if you let me back on.
Exactly. Well, you're always welcome, man. Like, seriously, this is a great conversation and one that I think people really, hopefully will really benefit a lot from, especially some of this information you had about, financial hygiene and really getting, that envisioning thing. I think, envisioning success and envisioning the pathway to success. It's not just about envisioning the success itself. A lot of times people think about what it's going to be like to be there at the end, but we don't really envision the steps it takes to get there. And then we basically fall flat on our face and don't reach the final goal. So I think that road mapping and envisioning the roadmap is really important there. Keyston, any last things you'd like to leave with our audience today before we head out?
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be scared to talk about your finances, I guess, would be the very first thing. If you have a business that's doing well, cannabis or not, ask them what they're doing, what they're using, what software they're using for accounting, who they're doing for their taxes. Specifically for cannabis, yes, you do want to get individuals who have cannabis specific knowledge when it comes to financial systems, reporting, things like that. Get into organizations that help and benefit your business type, as well as in the industry. Accelerators. I was in an accelerator, Founder Institute, fantastic time. I learned a lot. It wasn't necessarily cannabis driven, but it was, about business and tech and really making your business, structured properly. Do these things. And keep in mind that your business is in the cannabis industry and it's just now growing. So it's a marathon. You got to sprint, you got to be fast, but you also have to have some endurance and then have some patience in, with yourself and then some of the other individuals in the space as well. But I love the industry and, Banking Financial Services Committee. We should have some wonderful information coming out here shortly. So please, keep visiting the website and become a member.
Awesome. Thank you, Keyston. Thanks for that plug as well. I think that membership in NCIA is something that is highly valuable for people's businesses and also very important for the industry so that we can go and keep advocating in DC so that we can push for the Safe Banking Act to get through. Or I guess, is it a bill right now still? So safe banking to get through in whatever fashion it can. So with that all said, look, everybody have a wonderful week. Whenever you're listening to the show. So if you're listening to it Monday morning live, of course, have a wonderful week, rest of the week. Hopefully this kickstarts you really well. Take this advice, sage advice today. And if you're listening to it during the week, of course, make sure that you do subscribe to us on Spotify or whatever other platform that you use. And let's be in touch. Let's keep this ball rolling. So we have some great guests coming up. Mary Jane Oatman from Indigenous Cannabis Industry Association next week. Dr. Bridget Williams, as well as Natasha Delinoise Andrews on the 17th. And on the 24th, we got Michael Diaz Rivera. So we really a great April lined up. Peter Sue will be from Green Check Verified, somebody from the banking committee here. He'll be on May 1st. Maybe he will stand up for us if we ask nicely enough. But anyway, so everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
The Cannabis Minority Report is a production of the National Cannabis Industry Association. Hosted by Mike Lomuto, directed by Vince Chandler. Our producers are Bethany Moore and Aaron Smith, and our executive producers are Vince Chandler and Mike Lomuto.